Welcome to today's webinar by the Australian Water School, Securing Australia's Agricultural Future, presented by Geoff Harvey of Irrigation Australia. My name's Trevor Pillar. I'm the National Partnerships Manager here at iSwarm, and we're so glad to welcome you today to this, what's going to be a very interesting time together. And look who's here today. Lots of people, mostly in Australia, because we are talking about Australia's irrigated agriculture, but all states. Geoff's the National Training, Certification and Marketing Manager with Irrigation Australia. He joined IEL in 2016 after spending 22 years in the water industry. Before that, his role is a long career in Davey Water Products and many other senior management positions. Delighted you could join us today, Geoff, and spend this time with us talking around what the future of irrigated agriculture looks like. So what I'll do is I'll just hand it straight over to you now.
Okay, thanks very much, everybody, for participating in the discussion this afternoon. I want to thank iSwarm for allowing us to share in the knowledge that we've been gathering over the last couple of years. The presentation this afternoon is partly most of the presentation that was done at our conference in June in Sydney. But it's really about just everyone understanding how we're going to secure Australia's agricultural future. And it's not just about spending money on new equipment and so forth. It's really about utilising the knowledge and skills and research that has been done over many, many years. So I guess the hot topic that we talk about often is how we're going to deal with our water and food security in the near future. As I mentioned before, there's plenty of research, but very limited implementation. Lots of good work's been done, but the information is not really getting out to the end users or the farmers, and nor are they being trained properly in some of the new technologies. We also need to understand the employment gap that we have within the irrigation industry in Australia. We've got an ageing population. There's not many people coming into the industry, and those that are really aren't being trained appropriately or properly. We have a plan, I guess, in Australia to fill this gap. I'd like to share those with everybody this afternoon. We also asked at our conference to get a commitment from the industry colleagues to support this plan, because without support of this plan, we can keep on talking about water and food security, but realistically, unless we have people adequately enough trained to do the stuff that's required, we won't be able to feed the world what we've been asked to do, nor can we utilise the reducing water that's happening at the moment. There's some next steps that we talked about at our conference, and I guess with this group, I'd like to see what other ideas people may have from their experiences. So as we move forward, we talk about the landscape of our business is changing dramatically, and it continues to change, particularly in Australia. At the moment, we're faced with droughts all over the place, and our droughts come with every so often, I guess every 5 years. But the landscape's changing in a way that, it's moving rapidly, but I feel that in our space, we aren't keeping up with the technologies out there. But it's not about keeping up with the technology. It's more so training in the basic skills that are required to properly grow crops, utilise water more effectively and efficiently. The interesting thing for me, by being with Irrigation Australia the last couple of years, is that when we audit people or we talk about things at our training schools, and over the last couple of years, we train about 500 people per year, the general feedback is that we believe about 80% or more of farmers out there, for instance, don't do soil tests, very few do water tests, and they don't really understand the comparisons between those two things. And without understanding those things, how can we grow better crops, get higher yields, and use less water? And in most cases, when we audit systems out there, we can use less water to get better crops. So it's not about buying new technology and the shiny machines and the paddocks that we see. It's actually training people to understand the basics that are required in order to be good farmers. And I think, Australia is recognised as a leader in growing crops around the world. We have the highest yields of most of the crops around the world, but we could even do better, and then we can pass on that knowledge to other people in other countries in order to get a better outcome. In Australia in particular, skilled staff shortages will continue to affect our irrigation industry in the future in Australia. It continues to happen right now, and it's getting worse. In fact, the irrigation industry at school level is something that's not really talked about, but we need to make it a clear opportunity for those young kids that are coming through the schools to say, let's consider irrigation and water as a key opportunity for you going into the future. Because again, as I mentioned earlier on, is that we have a growing workforce, people wanting to retire, can't sell their businesses. So we've got to pass on that knowledge and get people trained up and consider this as a great opportunity for their future. So my mission today is to get you thinking about the key ingredients to professionalise our irrigation industry, both by training and certification. And what training is being qualified to do the appropriate tasks or have a certificate or a degree or a diploma in irrigation or water, and then having people appropriately certified in order to participate in that work being done. The facts that we see so far is that, again, with all the investment that's been happening and all the study that's been happening in the irrigation industry is not backed up by people adequately trained or certified to install the systems, to design the systems, to operate the systems in order to achieve the desired outcome. So a lot of money is being spent in that area. Very, very little money is being spent in appropriate training for the people that are utilising this equipment. And this is a big prize for us. But again, unless we get people focused on ensuring that they are trained, and we do support the training and certification in irrigation, we won't get the desired outcomes. Just a few quick facts. There is 40,000 irrigators in Australia, and the 5% of the farm of tilled agricultural land is less than 1% of Australia's total land. Irrigation accounts for 50 to 70% of water withdrawn for human consumption, and irrigators produce 30% of all agricultural value and half the profit within agriculture. Irrigation production is valued at approximately 9 to 11.5 billion a year, maybe more in some cases, and it's a key drive for our regional communities. So not only are we short of people considering irrigation as an option for their career, we also need to ensure that the regional communities prosper and grow in order to continue to feed not only everyone in Australia, but also help feed the world and utilise the water that's continuing to deplete over the years that we talk about. Water is very precious. There's not going to be any more of it. And I truly believe, based on what we do and what we train in, what the facts are, that we can use less water to get greater yields of crops in order to feed everybody. So I just want to talk briefly about the irrigation industry gap that we have. In Australia, for instance, we concentrate on the now, and the now are the baby boomers, I guess, and not so much the Gen X and Gen Y. But as the baby boomers are starting to retire, or trying to retire, but not able to because of appropriate people not trained, we need to start thinking about the next generation and, in fact, try and get them to think about, what their opportunities are for them. So just a bit of a cap, I guess. Baby boomers are those born between 1946 to 1964. Gen X is 1965 to 1979, and Gen Y is 1980 to 1994. And then we've got these teens coming through, Generation Z. And we've got to start thinking about how do we get these people rapidly trained up to ensure that they choose irrigation as an industry. In fact, when you look at some of the opportunities within Australia, there's quite a few people that are trained in being an accountant or a lawyer, for instance, but there's not enough jobs for those people that are finishing. So hence they go and do something else out of what they've been trained in. But I know within the irrigation water industry, there's opportunity for young people to come through. And there's an immense amount of jobs that are coming through that they'll have more to choose from than anyone ever before in our exciting irrigation industry. So to understand the characteristics of the younger generation, we've got to think about them. They want access to information anywhere, via phones, etc. They have a passion for travel, so they need to, whatever we put in front of them for opportunities, maybe study tours or doing training a little bit differently. They do have financial stress on individuals and young business owners. There's a bit of a concern about some people getting into business these days because they're not sure about taking the risk. But certainly in the irrigation industry, there's opportunity for people to participate and be supported by those that are willing to take the plunge. In fact, I was recently at a Cotton Australia conference, and at that conference it was pleasing to see that the average age range in the cotton industry is between 18 to 40. So it stands outside of everybody else, but it looks like there's a lot of younger people that are getting into either leasing or buying farms, seeing opportunities and taking the plunge. So at least that's one industry that's participating in what we're trying to talk about today. Younger people less tolerant on reading and more towards audio and visual materials. So again, we've got to try and speak to them and talk to them through the channels that they're used to, not through what the people that are a bit older. And there's a heavy reliance on social media platforms for networking. For instance, at Irrigation Australia, we heavily use our Facebook and LinkedIn social media, and we find that there's an interest there between 60 to 90% of open rate, where these days if you used email for the older generation, I'll call it, without insulting anybody, you might only get 20% that are opening up those emails. So again, we've all got to change. We don't want to change, but we've got to start thinking about these people. And that's how we're trying to attract those people to the irrigation industry and to pass on, or at least learn the knowledge that's not out there. So as I mentioned before, the irrigation industry suffers from a very large ageing population. In most meetings that we go to, you can probably look around the crowd and see few young people that are there. In just a few years, our belief is the irrigation industry will suffer a huge employment gap. In fact, as I said before, it's starting to happen right now. And, we get this by the number of job vacancies or members within our association that call up every week and say, is there any good people out there? Yes, there is, but they're already employed, but there's not spare to go around. So again, our plan as being the peak international irrigation body of Australia is to try and, get out there and find those people that are required and start getting them trained accordingly. So I guess for us, we start thinking about, what if we have a gap in the industry? Well, it means any non-qualified, non-trained and non-certified person can work in this space. There'll become an additional loss of professionalism. There'll be no standards in design, irrigation and maintenance. There'll be leak issues. We talk about saving water, but, if you just look at the infrastructure that's out there at the moment, there's lots of water lost to leaks and bad management. And if we have no staff to do this work, well, where are we really going to be? We talk about this water stuff. Even at government levels, they talk about, saving water and doing the right thing. But if we just go back to basics, get people appropriately trained and teach them to use the water better, we will get the desired outcome. So we're all going to think about, not just having research, not spending money on new capital, etc. Let's just go back to basics. Let's go looking at things like irrigation efficiency courses. Most of those courses that we train in every year and train people in, they go away with auditing their own systems, may spend a little bit of capital, but the return on the capital investment is paid back very quickly because they're getting the desired outcome. And I guess we're only scratching the surface here, but we need to rapidly increase this knowledge, get people appropriately trained in new and old technology, and then we can move forward and gain the outcomes that we're wanting, which is securing the water and food for the world. So our goal is to ensure a sustainable future of the irrigation industry in which irrigation systems are designed, installed and maintained by well-trained and certified professionals. And as I mentioned again, before, is that there's lots of good research out there. There's a lot of people doing good work, the PhDs, etc. But that information is kept within those boundaries. We need to get some of that good research work out in the industry, train people appropriately and get the desired outcome. There's been lots of money being spent in Australia with new capital and investments, etc. But we really aren't getting the returns, or we're not seeing the returns that we should be doing in ensuring that those systems that are installed, designed and maintained are done by the appropriate people and get the desired outcome that's required. So for us at Irrigation Australia, we've been thinking about how do we close the industry generation gap. Not an easy solution. There is plenty of careers out there, but when you start talking to schools, for instance, which we've started doing, nobody knows about these opportunities like becoming a certified irrigation designer, an agronomist, a manager, installer, a certified meter person, to ensure that the water that's being used is monitored properly, an irrigation contractor, operator, or even retailer. So we need to, straight away, as we went around the schools talking about some of these opportunities, we now need to educate and understand that there is an opportunity in the industry in all sorts of facets or disciplines within that industry. So these are just an example of some of the ones that are available in the irrigation industry. But as I said earlier, there wasn't a lot of understanding from the school level. So again, from our perspective, being the peak industry body, we need to communicate this opportunity to those schools and show that there is an exciting opportunity for people who want to participate in the irrigation and water industry. Irrigation Australia is renowned for the certification program, which is really something that's in the certified irrigation designer discipline. It's something that is done under license from the Americans, but there's 7 other disciplines within that area. And at the moment within Australia, we have about 60 local councils out of about 500 that adopt our program, which means that any work that's done by those councils or parks and gardens have to be done by a relevant, qualified and certified professional in order to get the desired outcome. So from an industry perspective, we want people to promote this and say, no, unless someone is appropriately certified or qualified, they can't do that work. So, I mean, we need the support of the industry and all our colleagues in order to say, well, the minimum requirement is this. But unless we all start thinking about this, we won't get that outcome of using less water, securing food for the future and ensuring that things are done appropriately and correctly. So behind the scenes, we've been building career structures for those that want to participate at all levels, from a young kid out of school right through to someone who wants to do a PhD in irrigation. This is just a couple of examples where by doing Certificate 3 in irrigation or Certificate 4 in irrigation, they can become, for instance, in Cert 3, an irrigation designer, installer, operator or contractor. Or if they want to get into get onto the next level, which is Cert 4 in irrigation, they can become a certified meter validator, installer, irrigation retailer, agronomist and manager, etc. So there is a clear career structure for those that want to participate. And I guess what we've been trying to work towards is now educating or communicating these opportunities to the schools and also for those in industry. There's lots of people out there that have many years of experience, but that experience is not recognised. They have no bit of paper to say that they are certified or qualified to do what they do. So they should also be recognised. So it's a two-phase concept where we need to make sure that the good people that are working in the industry are recognised and also at the same time attract the younger generation to consider irrigation as an opportunity. So just an example again of building the career pathway map. So, people can from a very early age become a certified irrigation designer over say 3 or 4 years, and there's step process in order for someone to get there. And this is something that we've mapped out with the help of many people within the industry through our Centre of Irrigation Excellence, which I'll talk about shortly. But the information's there. Again, it's about people implementing the information, taking on board and being part of what we need to do. So talking about what our options to fill this gap. Well, as I mentioned before, we need to continue to gain qualifications through the current irrigation workforce. They're very important people at the moment. As I said, we have a lot of ageing, workforce in irrigation. There's plenty of people that are working in the irrigation industry would love to retire, but they can't because one is there's no one to fill that gap. Unfortunately, they continue to work. And the other way we can do that is by targeting younger generation to consider a career in the irrigation industry. So the current irrigation workforce option is this, the current training need should continue. In the irrigation industry, Irrigation Australia, we train about 500 people per year, and the numbers are increasing. However, the number doesn't fill the forthcoming gap of extra irrigation professionals that are required, because some of these people will start to retire, and we believe that we need to be training probably at least 1,000 people per year going through that process, and that's not even just that'll only just fill the gap, not actually increase the gap. So we need to consider that. And I guess with the younger generation, the option of how we do this, we intend to target the younger generation through schools and highlight great opportunities that irrigation industry represents. So we've already done that to a small degree. We've got a couple of pilot programs at the moment in some rural communities that they want to, a few younger kids coming out of grades 10, 11 and 12 want to participate in some of the basic training like certificate level. And we believe that we'll have some great success with this proposal, because there's lots of kids out there that want to find, they don't really know what they want to do, but once you start talking about it and the opportunities, and they see the water shortages and the food shortages that we go through, or potentially will go through in the future, they can see that they can be part of the fix, I guess. So what we intend to do, and already started to do, is through a number of colleagues, and other bodies, is that we'll target the grades 10, 11 and 12. As I mentioned, we've been talking to both state and public schools in Australia to see what their interests are, and they're very excited about the opportunity that irrigation can represent. In fact, they never ever thought that irrigation was an option for people at school, and they're already excited to have another option for their students at school to participate in. But to do this, we also need irrigation businesses or suppliers or other bodies, state councils and local councils to sponsor these potential young people coming through. At an irrigation business, these kids could be, utilised for weekend work, or whilst they're in school holidays, they could do some career type work at the local sponsored business to help them through their volume of learning that's required in order to get their certification. But it's similar to pre-apprenticeship that some of the students go through now in other trades. If we can do that in the irrigation industry, at least we get them excited early and they can continue with their studies once they've finished their schooling. So, closing the gap, our solution, again, as I said before, is to start early. We have been talking to some regional schools and high schools to commence either Cert 3 or Cert 4 irrigation. And the other exciting thing is that what we're working on is behind the scenes is to try and come up with a proper apprenticeship, because most kids that don't want to participate at university want to be an apprentice, whether it may be an electrician or a builder. We're saying let's try and generate an irrigation technician apprenticeship. That's all can be attractive to those people. So that's something else that's being worked on behind the scenes, but we're pretty confident that we can get something across the line very soon. So I guess what we want to do is say, as the peak body, we'll manage the process of helping people find the training that's required, not only through Irrigation Australia, but we want to collaborate with other universities and other RTOs, but we can manage the process through our RTO and through our CRM program. But there'll be a high reliance on irrigation businesses and manufacturers, etc., or even local councils, I mentioned before, to start sponsoring these people as they would as trainees in this field, in order for us to gain traction in this space and help find those young people for the future. So the next steps, as I said, we've already started the next steps by doing some pilot programs, finding people that can sponsor these school leavers. In fact, at the moment we have 10 students in Griffith, New South Wales. We've been talking to 2 private schools in Toowoomba in Queensland as a pilot program. But also, so we're trying to provide marketing materials and some career paths for these people and clearly understand where they're headed. But we also have a Centre of Irrigation Excellence website. So the acronym there is www.coie.com.au. Get on that website, not only shows the opportunities within Irrigation Australia, but also has many other training providers, not only in Australia, but also international, where people can go on there, find the career they're looking for or training course, and then eventually they'll be able to register and participate in what's required. So again, it's in its early days, but as a peak industry body, we've been working on that to find a one-stop shop for those that are interested in that place. So before we finish the presentation, I just want to talk about, again, this is the Centre of Irrigation Excellence. So this is the website. It is sponsored by a number of key providers in the irrigation industry. I think we have 12 sponsors, and they're key suppliers that can see the opportunity by contributing money to this opportunity within the irrigation industry. So please get on there at some stage and have a look at it and give us any feedback that you might have. It's in its early stages, as I said, but we are finding that we're getting lots of hits on these, not only in Australia, but also overseas. And people are now starting to want to participate in training in Australia, not only with Irrigation Australia, but in other areas, and participate in the opportunities that are on offer through our universities and TAFEs. But it's interesting, as I said before, is that a lot of universities are doing some great work out there, but they're not good at marketing what they have to offer. So as a peak industry body, we're finding ways of utilising some of that skills or the knowledge that they've got and market it to the relevant people. So again, early days, but it's a starting point. For those who are interested, also we've got an Irrigation Australia website, www.irrigationaustralia.com.au. That also shows what other training courses that we run nationally, and in some cases internationally. We've had quite a bit of interest for people wanting us to perform some training, particularly in Asia, which we will do. But again, we're only one part of the puzzle. So if you want to, also participate, or there might be people that are online today that might also be training providers, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you about what other ways you can help us, again, fill this generation gap. So I guess just in closing, before we get on to any other questions, it's about I mentioned to Trevor earlier on, it's not about the new technologies. There's some great technologies that are out there within our industry. It's about just going back to basics and utilising the things that we should already know. Understanding the soils that we're utilising out there to irrigate, understanding basic water requirements for each plant, and implementing some of those things. Because as I mentioned earlier, the surprising thing for me was that there's lots of farmers out there that don't understand the basics. Yes, they do some good work, but they could do even better work by just implementing some simple things. And what they'll find at the end of the day is that they will utilise less water by understanding their soils and their crops better, and get a better outcome and yield for their business. So Trevor, that's into my presentation. I know there's been plenty of questions coming through.
Fantastic, Geoff. It's obvious that there's been a huge amount of thinking going on by yourself and Brian, CEO there of Irrigation Australia, and it's very clear that you've mapped out just how the future looks. My main interest is because of the irrigated agriculture produces some of the best wine in the world. So yeah, I keep that bottle there for occasions when we celebrate here at Ice Warm. But there's a lot of reasons to celebrate irrigated agriculture. Half of the profits for agriculture come out of irrigated agriculture in Australia. Yeah. We're very good at what we do. We manage scarcity and variability. We've introduced and developed water markets that drive water efficiencies up to the higher value crops and produce. Yeah, there's a whole lot of things we could probably run on about here, but look, I'm not going to go on anymore. There's a whole lot of questions and a whole lot of comments coming through from people. Maybe I'll just kick off with Peter Verway from DPI New South Wales has got up on the chat line. Everybody can see. Yes, it's gone to everybody. There's some comments there and some websites where there's Sustaining the Basin Irrigation 101 learning online. So thanks, Peter, for that. That's really good. We can all hook into that. But look, let's kick off with some questions here. Constantine is from Adelaide. Yep. Constantine says, do you think there is a role for migration to Australia to fill the irrigation workforce gap that you've identified for the future? What's the thoughts on that, Geoff?
Well, yes, I think the answer is yes. We have quite a few study tours that come to Australia to learn what we do. In fact, one of our schools that we have in September, we've got a few people from overseas that are going to participate in that. So I think they're seeing opportunities, but we're finding that most of the opportunities for people migrating here is that they want to be skilled and trained and go back to their own country than going here. But I guess it will have opportunities for people that may be skilled up in the right areas.
Michael Jemison's asked a similar question. He's from DNRME in Queensland. He said, how about targeting those accountants and lawyers you mentioned earlier who can't find jobs in their industries? If you gave them faster track to a qualification that acknowledges their existing skills, you might get more Gen X or Gen Y moving to the industry. Probably take that as a comment.
Again, when we're talking to a few key career advisors at schools, it's very hard to change the mindset of some of the younger generation, not to go do something like go and do a degree. But again, there's probably a percentage of at least 40% of those that are trained.
Yeah,
don't get the career they're after.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. Peter Hayes from Grape Wine has made a telling comment here. He's anticipating that you'll present material on course flexibility. He wrote this just earlier in your presentation, Geoff, and modes of delivery, sandwich courses, remote accessibility, remotely accessible media, etc. But he wonders whether both training and information transfer might also be facilitated by a dedicated Irrigation Australia app with the power to push or feed as well as respond to inquiries. So it's a bit of a complex comment, but there's a lot of things in there that could be of great value to irrigators.
Yeah, well, I guess, again, thinking about people having a mobile phone in their hand at any time these days, we are considering it. Now, we are working on the Irrigation Australia app. We have incorporated some new technology into our management of people so that we can communicate regularly and quickly. I mean, any follow-up that we do for people who are doing training, we do that via social media or through systems like mobile phones. And we're finding that by being able to get back to people quickly on that sort of information gets them motivated to do something. So again, it's thinking about how people communicate these days and utilise what's available to us.
Especially in an environment where technology is influencing, like we're talking about digital irrigated agriculture, cloud-based controls, drones, inspections of crops and inspection of infrastructure. Peter makes a good point that if there was an app that was fairly fast responsive for irrigators, that'd be good. Thanks a lot for your comment, Peter. That's really good. Another anonymous attendee, is the training focus on vocational skills rather than degree-based professional level? I mean, is that where the gaps are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the basics that's missing. So, the degree-based stuff, there's plenty of people doing degrees or PhDs in irrigation over the years, but it's more so the vocational careers that we were, the basic stuff, farming, installation, basic design. I mean, for instance, in Australia, we'll have a massive shortage of certified irrigation designers going forward. So for someone that wants to go the next level before a degree, certified irrigation design is a great career option. But if they just want to become a certified retail person or a great installer or operator of irrigation systems, there's certainly a great career for those people, and they can certainly help do the stuff on the ground that's missing in some cases.
Yep, no, that's for sure. Alice from Centec, Alice Faith has said that I couldn't agree more. Understanding soil types, moisture levels, and interaction with plants is critical. She asks, are the agronomic concepts included in COIE training?
Yeah, absolutely. So in most of the courses, even Introduction to Ag Irrigation and course that we do, and we actually do 2 of those courses per year for Ag and Water in Canberra, because they have about 180 trainees going through that department at any one time. And it focuses on the basics, understanding basic soils, even from home. So some of the work that we do, bring in a soil sample from home, we teach them how to understand soils. But that basic stuff is a key ingredient to understand the rest, and then understanding what sort of water does each particular crop need in order to participate. So we give them some great examples of, how much water does it take to grow a kilo of tomatoes, or how much does it take to grow 1 head of lettuce? For instance, I think what I remember is 1 head of lettuce takes about 150 litres of water, But people, when you talk about it, they think, gee, well, that's from seed to table. That's basic facts people don't understand, but there's some of those things that people should know that are farmers and have been farming for many years don't know, and they're the basics that I talk about.
Yep. No, that's excellent. Just flicking back to a comment from Peter a moment ago, he has now on the Q&A a web link to an article, Migrant Workers Needed to Stop Population Decline. Maybe what I'll ask, Peter, can you whack that up on the chat line for everybody to see that? Or we can do that ourselves. So maybe Joel, you can push that across here. Thank you for that. Yep, that's great. Thank you, Peter, for that. Hermina just makes a comment here from the Faculty of Agriculture at University of Timor in Indonesia. This is a really interesting talk, Hermina says. I'm so thankful to get a chance to learn from Australia and understand what's going on at the moment. Got no questions at the moment, but I'm an active listener. Well, that's great. Thank you, Hermina. That's a really good comment. I appreciate you saying that. Heather Percy asks, you mentioned pilot programs at Griffith and Toowoomba. Has there been any interest in irrigation training from schools in Western Australia?
Not at this stage. The 2 interests that came from Griffith and Toowoomba actually came to us, even though we do propose to send out interest in other states, but nothing's come straight to us at this stage, but we will be targeting certain areas of Western Australia under the same pilot program.
Right, that's good. That's good. Yeah, thanks, Heather, for that. Let's see, Basant in New South Wales, Western Sydney, I believe. Thanks for your question, Basant. Basant says, thank you, Geoff, for very informative presentation. Sorry I missed the beginning. Can you please share your thoughts on collaboration with universities in IA training courses? For example, our students can take some courses from your program and we can give credit in our degree program. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. Geoff, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been overwhelmed by what's been happening at some universities, particularly in Toowoomba, at University of Queensland and NCEA. There's lots of stuff that's been happening there, and I just think that that stuff's got to be shared. And I've already collaborating with them at the moment to say, well, that stuff that you've been researching in, let's make it part of some of the training course, because it's just wasted research that's sitting there. But I think some of that stuff, or quite a lot of it, can be benefited by others. Yep. Knowledge. So that collaboration is starting to occur, but we're more than happy to collaborate with others, because there's some great work out there, but it's just, communicating that great work to a wider field.
And could that include gaining credit from, say, Besant University for work done with Irrigation Australia?
I think it could. I mean, we do assessment and the RPL process, but it would depend on what's been trained. But there's no reason why credits can't be going through some of the alternate training that's been done that's similar to irrigation.
Might get you and Besant on the same wavelength later on.
Yeah,
that's a great thought, Besant. Thanks very much. Let's keep going here. Zara asks, what planning is being undertaken to identify the new skills we need for technology, automation adoption and other things when the ag industry as a whole is reducing their labour requirements?
Well, I guess there's two things. There's new skills for new technology, but the big prize for us is understanding the basics from the current technology. But it's good to see there's lots of new technology being spun out there. Like we have pivots and lateral systems, we have drip systems, with telemetry systems, we have IRRISAT systems to help us irrigate. It's interesting to note that there's a lot of good things being spent on, but the training in order to use these things effectively is probably not keeping up with the technology going in. I mean, the technology's there. It's now going back to basics and saying, how do we get people understanding how to use these things properly to get the desired outcome? Lots of money's being spent. I know Peter Verwey was on the line there earlier. I think his job's been introducing new capital investment, but I think he'd also probably agree that there's still some lack of training and people needing to utilise this equipment better in order to get a better outcome. So I don't think it's so much. There is savings to be made in rural Australia, for instance. Some of these systems take a lot of labour, but by introducing some new technologies can reduce the labour. But there's still plenty of opportunities for people in other areas to participate. It's not going to reduce people's jobs. I mean, there's people screaming for great people out there at the moment, but just can't simply get it.
Right. So the question arises in my mind is, what is the cotton industry doing? You said earlier to attract younger generation.
The cotton industry seems to be moving down south. I mean, there's a lot of cotton now being grown in Griffith, and even further now, where many years ago that may not have been the case. See some of the farmers that might have been up in Moree area now also got a second farm further down south. So they're sort of hedging their bets a bit because water security in other parts of the country are better than where they currently may be. So they're investing. Yep. But because there's a great outcome, I guess financially for some of these for a great crop, they're able to do that and know that they're confident that they're going to get the outcome and that the investment they put forward will get a return on their investment. So that's where the excitement is. I think the younger people see that and take the risk.
Yep. For Felicity Muller from Natural Resources Commission in Sydney has asked, how is the Irrigation Australia utilising or linking with the existing extension networks and private agronomy networks to extend the knowledge of the irrigation basics? That's a crucial question.
Yeah, for the small team that we have, we try and collaborate and see what good things are happening up there with the extension network. So, we sustain the basins for different programs that are out there. We try and communicate as best we can. We're trying to get closer to other industries and collaborate. It's like us now being closely aligned to ICE-WARM. Yeah, you're stronger together than apart. So
absolutely,
we're really trying to be real and collaborate, because if we work together, we'll get the desired outcome. So, long way to go. Some are very still protective of what they do, but I think there's where possible, we try and contribute where we can, and vice versa. I think we're on the same page.
Paul McGarry from Groundwater Science says, hi Geoff, what's the best way to transfer information at the landowner level? Does this usually occur at the shop front when selling equipment, products? Here's a beauty. Thanks, Paul. Or do irrigators typically seek out knowledge at events like field days? I'm interested to understand how training and knowledge is transferred at the groundwater level. You get the gist of this question here. Yeah. It's a very major point.
The surprising thing for us is that we're now finding a shift from people with businesses that are selling the equipment to the end user now. More end users now participating in our training. For instance, in the last two pivot and lateral move training courses that we did in Victoria, 80% of the participants were farmers.
Yep.
12 months ago, you might have had 10% were farmers. So farmers are starting to want to find more information.
Yep.
Unfortunately, some of those people that are selling machines that should have the knowledge of equipment don't know it.
Yep.
And I think there's a bit of frustration out there from the farmer level. So another success story I tell is, there was a big cotton grower at one of our pump courses about 18 months ago. Wondered why he was there. He wasn't trusting that the information that he was getting right or up to date. I know after that course, he invested, I think it was $40,000 on new pumps, and he now has a saving of power and water savings of about $120,000 a year. So it was
that's serious money.
Yeah,
40,000, 120,000.
Yeah, so I guess there's a frustration here, but it's not just about the dealer network or the manufacturers. It's actually training everybody that's in the industry on an equal foot. Otherwise, as I said, because of that shift from more end users wanting to be trained, it just seems there's a level of frustration that they aren't getting the information that they need, and hence they're now putting their hand up to be trained.
Peter Hayes says that there are other organisations, not simply individual members. For other organisations, not individual members, could you outline the efforts Irrigation Australia is applying to affiliate status and to benefit the members of those other organisations? For example, training access. You've got some program, I understand.
Yeah, so we in our membership, we have increased our membership categories. We are targeting more end users and making it attractive for them to do so. So as a non-for-profit association, we also try and offer some great discounts for some of that training. So it's not a big cost impost for people to participate. But through other networks like iSwarm, through National Irrigators Councils, through Cotton Australia's, through New South Wales DPI, Ag Victoria, those sort of people, we are actively collaborating and getting them to also communicate what we have to offer, because the biggest thing is people aren't aware that there are associations such as us that are here to help guide or be the peak industry body to guide the industry where it should be through those networks.
Alice from Centec says, just a comment on Zara's question. She says, Alice says, consultants and agronomists are essential to connecting growers to technology. What we need is to train the trainers so they can confidently introduce and support new technologies.
Yeah,
that's well said, Alice. Yeah, thanks for that. That's a crucial comment. Another one here, anonymous. A good understanding of the water footprint for each product and crop is essential to have a meaningful debate on water allocation sustainability. It's true. The question is, how much of this information comes out in the training that you're speaking of?
Well, in most of the courses, I'll think of a couple, is like an irrigation efficiency course, our Cert 3 in irrigation, for instance, or introduction to ag irrigation. We all talk about the different types of crops and what crops can be grown in certain soils and why certain crops are grown in certain parts of Australia, not other areas. Yep. Because it's basic information that people should know, and also it's the available water that's required for those crops. So there's no use going to put in for instance, to grow cotton in an area that's not hasn't got the right soil or the right water demand there to participate. So we do talk about those things, and that's how things are chosen. But again, it's basic knowledge at basic level that is the missing link, and we do pass on that information at all those sort of courses. And to people's amazement, they for instance, most people wouldn't know how much water we need to irrigate grass or turf in the peak season. People just see a bit of a dead lawn and put a bit of water on top. Well, it's not going to do anything, So we do talk about those things and the importance of considering soil as a bucket. You've got to fill the bucket first and keep it full in order for the plant to take the water. But if the bucket's not full, you won't keep up with the demand of what the plant requires to grow.
Yep. Well, I think we might make this the last question. Would you say, this is from Constantine in Adelaide, would you say the perceived need for irrigation professionals to live in the country contributes to the lack of interest? But there's two questions here. The second one also goes on to say, do you think our new technology can actually make a big, meaningful impact to enable irrigation management off-site?
I think some of the technology can be done from a remote area, but I think there's still stuff to be done on the ground. Yes. You won't get away from that, unfortunately. There's some great technologies out there that people take advantage of. The satellite systems, yep. Soil moisture monitoring, where it's telling you when you should irrigate. But there's still a lot of stuff that has to happen on the ground.
Yeah.
I know there's some farmers that drive a number of their farms from an office, but there's still a requirement at certain times to be on the ground and be there.
We might leave it there,
Yeah.
but I appreciate everybody's questions and discussion going through the chat lines and through the Q&A. Bye for now, everyone.
Thanks very much. Thank you.